Hello and welcome. This is episode 23 of a podcast Engineer-to-Manager. I'm your host, Oleg Maestrenko. In this podcast, we are diving into the essence of engineering management. We explore what engineering management is, what are the challenges and opportunities. For this journey, I invite engineering managers from different parts of the world. Today's guest is Naveen Bhati. Is that correct?
Yep.
Nice. Nice to have you, Naveen. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you on the podcast. So we're just looking on your CV here. You started with Meta as a QA, quality assurance engineer, and then you went via several other quality assurance head of QA positions to their engineering management, and now you're head of engineering and AI. Whoa, we already start with the hot topic of AI at a company called TI Q2Q, right? And I'm looking forward to talk about AI during our conversation. Would you like to add anything to your bio or to what you did before?
Yeah, sure. So when I generally talk about my bio and career, I like to mention a couple of milestones in the career, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners and audience can relate to it, and it gives them something to think about and be thankful of. So before I get to that, so I'm currently working as head of engineering and AI in a tech company called TikTok. It's actually pronounced TikTok.
Whoa. That's a name that brings to a different topic, right?
Yes. Actually, the company that I work for is the original TikTok, because they were founded back in 2016. This video sharing app is fairly new, so we are the original TikTok.
All right.
Keeping that aside, so my journey is actually I think it's exciting and interesting. It spans over 12 years in tech industry. I started as a electrical electronics engineer, moved into QA, then DevOps, infrastructure engineer, several management leadership role, and finally as a head of engineering.
How did you get into Meta as a quality assurance? Quite an unusual role for me to hear somebody working as a QA at Meta.
So Meta was an interesting experience, and it was kind of one of the two significant milestones I was talking about. Is one of the milestone in my career, because during my time at Meta, I led a global quality assurance team there, and honed my skills around managing large and complex projects, navigating challenges, especially in rapidly evolving tech giant. And when I joined Meta, it was a shock because everything they do in there is not actually industry standard or what you used to. You do SDLC or a traditional QA or a lot of things. There's no a lot of traditional stuff in Meta. They have their own tool processes. They leverage whatever the good they get out of industry standards. So QA is a big part of Meta as well. That's how they keep all the systems and services up and running. But it's a lot advanced in terms of getting the signals, assessing the efficiency, stability, performance of the systems, and things like that. A lot of non-traditional things they do to ensure quality, rather than just having a team of QA going around and testing, checking, validating things.
What has been the second milestone in your career that you mentioned?
So the second one is actually the first one. So I was working as an IC automation engineer, and a little bit of software engineering work that I've done. Then there's a guy called Zen Kautaskin. He hired me as a test architect. So and I learned and grew significantly under his leadership, both from technical and management point of view. And he provided me opportunities to grow, in kind of 360 growth, and that has been pivotal kind of moment in my career. So what I'm trying to highlight here is it's sometimes you need people who just take a bet on you, and then it can set a course to a different journey in your career. So that was the pivotal moment for me, and I thank Zen for that, basically.
Nice. Well, it's good to have such a coach, a mentor that you met across your career who actually helped to shape your future. But it's also a very big responsibility, right, for the person to both bet on you and to push you in some direction or show you some way, right? It depends on the personality.
Yeah.
And we as leaders, as managers, should we do this? What do you think? Or should we be very careful when doing this? What should we take into account?
I think it's a balancing act, and it is a responsibility to give back what you got, basically. So when I do hiring, and if I see someone has potential but not the experience they've got, but they have this zeal or drive to do things, I would rather hire that person. And I made decision where I hired that kind of person rather than someone who is way more experienced and has a lot of technical knowledge, because technical stuff you can teach someone, but the other aspects are more important than just technical things. So I think as a leader we should take a bet on the potential, and a lot of times it's good to give back to the community what you have received.
Sometimes it doesn't work out. So like you put a bet and the ball, the lead didn't work out, right? And you basically lost your time, your energy, and it's very hard and hits us in the back. Like, okay, that's the time I've lost. How to recover from this, or how to step over it?
Yeah, so there have been instances where I've been in this kind of situation. The only thing I would say is to learn quickly and adapt to it, and make decisions quick and early. So especially a lot of the times what I've seen in different managers and leaders is that when they start noticing someone not performing well, or they realize that this was a wrong bet, they don't take action immediately. So if you have a cut, if you leave it open and don't put the bandage immediately,
Right.
it's gonna bleed you out. So although these making these kind of decisions will be difficult, but you have to make it, and you're only gonna learn either you experience it a couple of times and you learn from the failure and the impact that you feel, or you have a good coach or mentor who can tell you that you should make decisions. Um, it's especially important in startup kind of ecosystem. So if you are running a startup and then you have very limited resources, and both financially and human resources, and if you make a bad decision, you need to cut that thing out as soon as possible. And that happened to me. So one thing I didn't mention as part of my career in information is that I've been part of two failed startups.
Oh.
And there was a lot of learning. So one of the startup I worked in, where I was a co-founder and CTO of a food tech startup in London, which didn't work out after 2 years. It's a lot of learnings. The second one was in a fintech based out of India. That didn't work out for various reasons we can talk about, but many learnings there. So yeah, quick decisions is helpful.
Yeah. So you mentioned quick decision. You mentioned mentoring people or
Yeah.
inspiring people. What are the three skills of engineering managers, engineering leaders that you think are most important?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and a difficult one to answer as well, because it depends on the situation you're in, what kind of team you're leading, and stuff like that. But if I have to boil it down to three skills, the top first one I would say emotional intelligence. This is absolutely crucial skill, and as a leader, one must understand that managing your own emotion as well as recognizing and influencing the emotions of your team is important. It's by doing so you can get most out of it and help each other. It's about, if you have an emotional intelligence or high EQ, if you are a high EQ EM, you can create an environment where people feel valued, understood, and motivated, hence improved productivity and impact, right? I mean, I've seen it firsthand how managers with high EQ can transform both team dynamics and sometimes the personal life of someone. So there was a couple of years very low in my career. I had a great high EQ manager called Mark Tully. I'm naming people here. I'm not sure if I should, uh, but Mark Tully, during my work at ASOS, and he helped me navigate the most emotionally difficult time in my life, and I came out strong, actually. So first one is high EQ. The
Okay.
second one is, as an EM, you're not just a manager, or you're not just herding sheep. You need to have some sort of leadership skill set as well.
All right.
So what I would say is second skill is adaptive leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So the tech world is moving at a crazy pace right now. Well, it has been, but since AI has been moving even crazy, right? And as a manager, you need to be able to pivot quickly. What this means is that you should be open to new ideas, technologies, ways of working, and things like that. It's about leading your team through changes, whether that's adopting new technology, methodology, integrating AI into your processes, or adopting
Hmm.
to the new developments and things like that. So what I'm trying to say is the ability to adapt and guide your team through transitions is invaluable. So transitions
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
technologies or different phases. So that's the second skill I would say.
But it's not only about the technology; it's also about their company growth, right? So when the
Yeah, yeah,
company grows, or you change the process, you might change their culture. Because when you become like when you're a 10 people company and when you're a 100 people company, it's a very different approach and a very different relationship that you're having. If you want to keep that relationship, it's also a challenge through the transformation of the size, right? So it's
absolutely.
a valuable point to look at on the organization.
No, no, absolutely. You kind of nailed it in a different viewpoint. So if you're a leader in startup, you're hands-on, you're doing everything, you're getting involved in everything, right? But as the team grows, you need to learn to let go of things. And I've seen people who just can't let go of things, and that's not very healthy and helpful. And delegate. So those are the other skills that one EM should have. But yeah, the third one I would say is, even though we're talking about EM and they kind of sort of looks after the team and people and the growth of them, and making sense of everything they're doing and delivering things, having a long-term vision or view of business and organization goals and all of that is important. So the third skill is strategic thinking.
Hmm.
So it's good to have like hands-on understanding of technical details as an engineering manager, but it's also important to be able to see the bigger picture. So this involves like aligning your team's efforts and to team's effort to the broader business goals, being able to anticipate the future challenges so that you can kind of prepare for it, and making decisions that will benefit both the company and your team in the long run.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so it's kind of like a balancing act. So you balance your day-to-day operations with long-term vision and strategy in mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I would say that's the third one. There's top three. So strategic
And
thinking, adaptive
yeah.
leadership, and emotional intelligence.
Nice, nice, nice. So basically, you cover different directions of management, right? Or talking about people, talking about their change, and talking about the future,
Yeah,
and putting this in three kind of cornerstones of a
yeah,
manager. And then a very intuitive question that comes next, kind of like you're being a head of engineering, right? And AI, like in different companies, that means totally different. And when you talk about this three important things for you as a manager, I think you are taking them into your work, into your daily work, and are therefore kind of interested how your day as an engineering manager looks like. So what you as a head of engineering are doing on like a daily, weekly basis to understand how this skills are transitioning into your daily life, and what is your position about.
head of engineering role, it will differ depending on which environment and the size of organization you're in, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
and what your day to day would look like will differ drastically at times. If you're a head of engineering in a very established big corporation, it will differ. And if you're in an organization like that I'm part of, which is kind of on the verge of scale up, so that they're just growing right now, it
Hmm.
will look very much different. So for example, as a head of engineering and AI, what I'm doing is looking at all of our services, potential growth opportunities, different source of revenues and stuff like that, and coming up with plans and strategy to leverage this new technology advancement in AI, and to build different revenue streams. And the secondly, how can we improve our existing offering and services,
Hmm.
leveraging technology, or improving process and things like that. So most of my time at the moment is kind of going into these, creating product roadmaps, business proposals, having cross-functional or collaborative meetings, talking to business development people, setting up long-term vision, creating community of practice within organizations, to kind of building this whole engineering department ground up is something that I'm currently involved in. So that's the kind of responsibilities you would see, while all this administrative kind of stuff you have to do, like people management, the performance review, one-to-ones you need to do, and many other things, helping them navigate their career, writing career pathways or defining career pathways for different disciplines within your department. So most of my time right now is going into all of these things. How I see in short term is me getting a little bit more technically involved, like creating solution architecture and those sort of things. And once I have built the engineering teams, and then I can kind of delegate them to do it, and I have a high level visibility of the works, initiatives, and things that I want to run. That's what my day or months look like as a head of engineering and AI. Because AI is evolving a lot, there's crazy amount of POCs, spikes that I need to do, playing around with different LLMs and technologies and things like that. But it's going to change as the team grows and stuff. So that's kind of an environment where team is small, they're just scaling up, and you're kind of doing a lot of these things. Whereas I've seen many head of engineering roles where the scope is very much limited, especially when the company is mature, company is huge. Then you just with a narrow focus while keeping the long term vision in mind, you look at this specific area of the business, for example. So
it's interesting. It's interesting how you focus on your second and third milestone, and then comes only the first one. And for me, it's very interesting to observe, because the first milestone with their emotional intelligence is a lot about people. And I was just curious and thinking, like, okay, as a person, as a leader working in AI, can we transition a part of our work that requires really human skills to a very robotic implementation by AI? What do you think?
Many people will led people to believe that you can, but I think the human involvement is never going to go away. AI will augment certain things. So it will empower you to do more. For example, a very good example of human involvement is performance reviews. AI can help you get the data, collect data, make recommendation and decisions and things like that. It can help you monitor an employee's performance, objective, identify patterns, trends, and things like that. But you will always need a human observation in there, especially at the very end where you're delivering and having that discussion of performance review with someone as an engineering manager, head of, or whatever. So AI will augment a lot of things, but it's not going to replace. So in leadership, especially, AI is kind of revolutionizing decision-making process, if you may. And leaders now more and more getting access to AI powered analytics, and they're processing vast amount of data and providing insights into various things that were before unattainable. So this is kind of enhancing your ability, but is not replacing the human element that is required. AI cannot have gut feeling. Only human can, right?
Absolutely. But what are your favorite tools in AI in leadership? So let's not mention all their LLMs, because they are quite an obvious application, but they're like, I know there's like one thing that you mentioned, connecting the data, and they're basically searching the patterns and showing like the person doing all the time, I don't know, lots of comments on code reviews, or having that many type of errors, bugs. Yes, this is all statistics, but if you don't have the statistics, you can basically kind of, I'm trying to imagine, push the tool towards your their AI tool towards your system, towards your tools, and say like, okay, tell me something about John. Or what is his behavior been in the last behavioral patterns has been in the last 3 to 6 months. Where he's improving, where he needs my support. Are these kind of tools existing in the area?
I haven't personally come across an end-to-end tool for human resource and tracking all of this data points that you mentioned, but you can kind of use collection of tools, AI tools at the moment. So to I'm kind of building an internal small POC where which kind of collects all the information from our existing systems. For example,
Hmm.
whatever human management or resource management tool you're using, if they have an API interface, you can access a lot of information and then pass it on to an LLM to make sense of it and produce an output and and kind of make it available for other managers and leaders to see.
And what is the output of that tool? What are you trying to achieve?
So that is primarily around performance management. So you collect information from, let's say, Jira, around what work they have done, how many tickets they have raised or bugs they have raised, or um, how much work they have delivered and things like that. That's one part of the data point. Second one you can look at is the git commit sort of things, how much of a code they have delivered and things like that, and taking all of that information and passing it on to LLM and creating something out of it. So what is that something at the moment is kind of to be determined. But the early outputs that I'm producing is kind of came up with a list of different metrics that you need to measure or track to measure performance of an individual, and that should guide an any leader, manager, and stuff to make a decision or help individual to achieve more or grow more. So one of the challenges there is the privacy sort of things in
True, true,
AI.
true, true.
So I don't want to pass on that information to OpenAI or Claude or any other LLM. So the things that I'm exploring right now is to use one of the open source LLM, run it on our own infrastructure, and utilize that as part of the whole package. So a lot can be done, and I think
Just to challenge this approach,
yeah.
can't you cover the case that you mentioned with the statistics? What is specific of the task or the idea that you have, so that you are using AI? What AI brings more you here?
AI can help you connect the dots, identify trends, help you make decision better. And one thing that in management I've seen a lot of people struggle is they move into leadership and management kind of role, but don't have the required training and skills to have these kind of meaningful conversation with their reportee, basically, right? So how to give proper feedback and how to have challenging conversation and what a one-to-one should include. So what AI can help you with is provide you the framework or a starting point to have these conversations. So it kind of helps with the training part as well. So by collecting all of that information and presenting in a way that you can communicate with your employee or that individual, that helps that manager, right? And it also helps the individual to get more constructive feedback, if you will, or constructive information, which they can then work on and take action accordingly.
What are the tools that you've tried for their leadership that are AI based?
I'm pretty much very much on using one of these LLMs, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity. So those are the three I use in combination. One thing to keep in mind is not to pass on the sensitive information into them and things like that. Privacy is one of the big concern. Other than that, I'm not using any other tool. Let me think.
Do you have them kind of integrated in your environment, or just as external tools?
So just as an external tool, however, I put together a AI security guideline kind of document, which kind of insist people to kind of guide people or rest of the team to what to do and what not to do and how to go about using these tools and what information you can put and cannot put. Some security guidelines. In my current role, that's the extent of it at the moment. It's fairly new. I'm fairly kind of early into the role, so the use cases will evolve. I can give you one example where I used AI in my previous role, so which was head of QA at a company called Improbable. They build metaverse and games, and you have NPCs, like in a game or metaverse, you have non-playable characters. Now, if you want to test any of these kind of virtual environment for performance, and if you want to claim that, let's say we support 18,000 concurrent users or
Oh,
players. How are you going to go about testing that? So you need NPCs in your virtual environment or in your test rigs. One way of doing it is you code all of their behavior manually
all
and,
right,
and
right.
say,
Well,
okay,
that's a nightmare.
yeah, that's a nightmare. So this is where we leveraged AI to kind of enable that bot or NPC to talk to OpenAI APIs, and we just give that one instruction, and they just OpenAI will kind of tell them what to do next. So that's one use case of leveraging AI and how it has dramatically improved our efficiency and effectiveness of the test. Other general use cases that we see, like chatbots, content moderation is a big one that we used OpenAI and other AI services for.
I just looked up on your LinkedIn page where I found you, or that you also a mentor, and during your mentorship, or are you inspiring people to also take advantage of the tools? Like, what other cases that you're? Again, I don't want to break any NDA or a disclosure with your mentees, but kind of if you can share several cases that were interesting and that were AI connected, it would be great.
So I don't think I have anything more to add in terms of AI tools specifically. I'm currently mentoring a startup which is building a game to help females with some of the challenges. So it's called Her Games. I don't think I should share anything more than that about that. But yeah, they're building some interesting use case, and there is a use of AI somewhere in there.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Interesting. So when you, or again, coming back to your career, when you
Mhm.
came to this point, how do you transition from a head of QA, from quality assurance, to the head of engineering? Because these are very different roles, right?
It is. Yeah, so that's why I said my career was quite. So my experience has been quite interesting in a way that even though my job titles have always been in quality assurance related or engineering lead related, most of my work went into leadership and strategic kind of things, and doing a lot of engineering, DevOps, infrastructure, and that sort of work. So, for example, when I was at ASOS, I started as a lead QA, but then I spent a lot of time doing DevOps, training other engineers on DevOps. Then I moved into a solution architecture role where I designed the architecture of their customer care side of things. And I was kind of transitioning into the architecture and engineering lead and that sort of role. But then Meta came along and they offered a job, so I couldn't say no. So they pulled me back into QA side of things, and,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. So I kind of had always had exposure to or invested a lot of time as part of both my traditional career and involvement in startups in
Mm-hmm.
engineering. So the skill set required to become a head of engineering are not new or foreign to me or alien to me. I've always been doing it. It's just the title was always in QA, and this
Yeah.
company understood it, and now I'm in a head of engineering position. Plus, being a QA, I think ha- has put me in a very interesting situation where you need to look at everything. Like if you think about a quality assurance engineer role, you need to understand the what project is. You need to understand
Mm-hmm.
the business analyst side of things. You are doing the Scrum. You're looking at the code because QA is involved, gets involved in code reviews. You're looking at architecture to analyze if it's testable or not, or how to go about test this. You're looking at the monitoring and observability side. You're looking at customer support side. So QA role, if someone utilizes this role or opportunity effectively, they get a very holistic experience of various different kind of roles, and then helps you transition into various different career paths.
You
And
kind of get a complete view on the whole development cycle, and
exactly.
also a whole view on the product or project that you're working on, right? So, and you track it from the very beginning to make sure that basically their quality is on the level that you set your benchmark up to.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer your question, that's how I kind of got exposed to and kind of took advantage of me being into this position to build my skill
Hmm.
set in all of this different aspect, while QA was kind of a core thing that I've been doing. And that led me to the position that I'm in right now.
Do you want to go back one day to individual contributor role? Are you considering this?
Both types of roles have their positions and they have their unique challenges and rewards, right? and
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
and, and I had the opportunity to experience both. So right now, as a head of engineering and AI, I'm in a leadership position, but I spend a lot of or significant amount of time as an IC in my career. Based on my experience, I have to say that I personally prefer a leadership and engineering management role. Although I have a deep respect and value for the work that ICs do. That being said, I try to make time to stay technically engaged even in my leadership role, and that gives me this advantage, I think, that a manager or or an engineering leader should have, being
Hmm.
able to talk technical things, right? And I think industry needs strong leaders who understand both technical challenges and can bridge the gap between technical and business concerns. So I would say ultimately, I believe the choice between IC and an EM or leadership role is a personal one, depending on someone's strengths, interests, career goals, and all of that. I would stay in EM leadership role going forward.
Interesting, because some people are saying, okay, I would go back for some time because this is a different. Specifically, the first point that we talked, right? Their emotional intelligence, the level that you have to spend is very
Yeah.
different between their IC and their EM role. Whereas in EM, that's kind of an enormous amount of energy you have to put to communicate, to talk to people, to make sure everything's fine. And as a person who likes managing, who thinks or who is like already on this level, what would be the biggest challenges for being an aspiring leader?
Leading with impact is about creating, positive change and driving results while caring for both the team and the company that you work for. And I'm not sure about significant challenges, but there are some kind of pieces of learning that I can share for either existing or aspiring leaders. Is first is communicate clearly and often. So I've seen many leaders who fail to communicate clearly, and they are far more detached from the team. So get involved more, communicate clearly, because this is one of the crucial skill to have. Be able to articulate your vision clearly. If you can't communicate clearly, you can't set expectation, either professional one or about a specific project or whatever work you're doing. That's one, and that's a challenge as well if you think about it, sometimes for people who just got into some of the leadership position without knowing how to do all of these things, right? That's where AI can help us. Again, AI can help you communicate clearly, how to do storytelling and things like that. The second thing I would say is lead by example. Servant leadership is another one. So s- we heard that many times, that your action speaks louder than your words, right? So
All right.
demonstrate that. And many times managers are kind of more of a, don't want to use this word, but dictators. They're not leading by example, if you may.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that when leaders roll up their sleeve and work alongside the team during, especially during the critical phase, it helps boost the morale and the productivity of the team. So leading by example is the second one. The third challenge, I would say, that I kind of briefly touched upon before, is letting go of things and delegating.
Right,
So
right, right.
that's a
That's
challenge.
very,
Yeah.
yeah.
So as a leader, you should be able to or create an environment where you can trust your team with the responsibilities, right? And delegation is about offloading. Is not just about offloading work. It's about empowering your team members to kind of help empowering your team members and helping them grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another challenge or advice. Like if you want to become a leader,
What?
learn to deal
What
with
has
it.
been the hardest for you? What has been hardest for you? Because we are all. It's nice to talk about the successful things that are, but it's interesting to talk about things that failed. Like what other lessons are you, and what has been the hardest for you?
I'll talk about two things. One was emotional intelligence. So I used to be in my earlier career, I used to be very like my thoughts were very much robotic in a way that you're at work, it's certain responsibility you have, you're expected to do something. I don't care what's going on in your life or anywhere, deliver. And when I became a manager with that kind of mindset, it kind of negatively impacted my team. And don't want to name which company and which person, but that expectation of me from my team member that I don't care, you deliver without being emotionally available or considering what probably might have been happening in their life made a few of my team member cry on several occasions. So that's been,
Hmm.
and that was a kind of my learning point there, that EQ is extremely important if you want to get the most out of your team and build the trust within the team as well. So that's one. The second negative thing is it took me a very long time to learn to let things go. I know I've been talking about letting things go a lot, but that was the most difficult one because when you're invested in a project or something, I wanted to get involved in every aspect. At that some time, uh,
Specifically in those two failed startups, when you're in a startup mode, you basically want to be everywhere to make sure everything's moving, right?
yeah, in startups you have to. So there's no choice. The team is small. You have to do a lot of things. You have to get involved. But my experience is more around working in a medium to large
Hmm.
organization. I still wanted to be involved in every decision and everything. That's again all of this in early career of management and leadership of mine, and that resulted in me being a bottleneck in many things, and things weren't progressing at the speed that you want, or we weren't delivering things because I was the bottleneck, and that's where letting things go came in. So yeah, I would say those are the two main failures and learnings.
Was it in the stage that you were basically realized it and could change it, or it was already kind of too late to fix? Because this also might happen, right? If the tumor is already gone, it's gone, and you cannot change anything rather than think over and think for the future.
Yeah, so it's absolutely critical that one should, whenever you realize, you should learn from it and start to apply the learnings in very next situation as early as possible. So to answer this question around could I have reversed things after realization, in the first instance where I unknowingly made someone cry without worrying about, without being considerate, uh, no, because that has happened, but I made sure that that never happened again.
Hmm.
The second situation where I was a bottleneck, that's certainly something that I kind of detached myself from the complete process and put in place some processes in the metrics that would kind of give me indication of how things are performing. So you need to build
Hmm.
a process or mechanism around you as a head of or as a leader that gives you all the data points or indicators to give you enough confidence that things are moving in a direction that you want to without you being involved, you know,
Right, right, right,
hands off.
right, right. And they're just curious your thoughts about the first situation, because basically when something like this happens, you lose a trust, right, between you and that person or that group of people. Do you think that trust is restorable?
I think it is, but it takes a lot of times. And again, leading with example. So you need to display why someone should trust you again, right? And it takes time. Short answer is yes. You can gain the trust back from your
What
team.
should you do, kind of like very practical things to make sure that you start regaining the trust?
Okay, let me try a different example. Hopefully, that will make more sense. So I joined a company, and in soon after, weeks after joining that organization, I was asked to let go of people.
Hmm.
Now imagine coming in from a leadership position at the time when you need to build the trust, get the team on your side, and set up the process and things like that, you're letting people go. Now, the people who you are gonna let go are friends with other team members, that they're colleagues that work together for
Right.
years and things like that. So you're kind of creating chaos in your team, but you have to do it. So I did it. I
How you do it?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, because basically you have to keep the very thin balance between making sure you communicate clearly what you said, like why those people are not with their team anymore, and how to keep those people who are left.
So yeah, the clear communication and transparency plays a big role into these kind of situation. I cannot share exactly what I said here because of the
Sure.
non-disclosure disclosure things. But what I would say is being extremely transparent helps, and
Mm-hmm.
that way they can see, and being vulnerable. So that way they can see that it's not my choice to make. I was put into this difficult situation. I had to make these decisions which I made, but I will do whatever it takes in future to reduce these kind of instances from happening again.
Mm-hmm.
So again, transparency and clear communication is one, backed by that in future I'm already thinking about making changes and decision where we reduce the chances of this happening again, which is what I've done in this instance as well. Is
Nice.
like, for example, instead of growing the team by hiring permanent members, I started with whenever there was a need, I got a contractor or outsourced,
Mm-hmm.
so that whenever there's a time to cut the resources, you can safeguard the core team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then let go of and let go of other resources, if you may. So by implement, that was one part of it. So by doing these kind of things, I kind of build back the trust from the team. Transparency is the key. That's what I will say.
Yeah, very nice example, because this is a very stressful situation, both for I could imagine for you, who came to that company as a new employee, and for the team that has been working there before. That's indeed, I hope it all ended well, and you kept your promise.
It went well, but yeah, let's leave it to that. it,
All
it
right.
went it went well. The team was happy. I managed to build the trust. Uh, got the productivity out of the team as I wanted. Department has been running smoothly. So I think the outcome was good. But as a leader, when you join into these kind of position, this is the last thing you want, that you come in and shake up or let go of people. So I hope others won't have to, or people don't get into this situation. But be transparent and vulnerable, you'll be golden.
When you have a shaky times, right? You have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
cut people, cut budget.
Mhm.
You have to have a specific type of mindset, right, to go
Yeah.
over this stress. When you have a stable environment where you can grow, when you can plant, I don't know, new people at team and so on, get ideas how to improve. Those are different types of mindsets, in my view.
It is. They are.
Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
and there, what do you think about this? Can one person handle both?
Yes and no. Yes, if you're going through this situation one or two times, then yes, you develop or build that mindset and skills that are required. So when I was in this situation, I haven't been through it. This was the first time, so I learned. So I hope I don't have to do it again, but if I do, then I know how to approach it,
Hmm.
and what are the things that I could improve on to gain that trust quicker, instead of taking 3 months. In weeks, I can get back to that level. So yes, the mindset is different. I don't think one person, unless they have experienced it, can do it. You need to experience it to be able to go in these kind of situations. They're never good situation anyway, but how you go about handling that and keep your peace as well is
Hmm.
you can only learn when you're in that situation. The other thing I would say is build strong relationships. That helps a lot of time when you are transparent with the team, very open about many things, and talking or in touch with the team regularly. So the things I do is the town hall and office hours and things like that, to be very close to the team. Then situation like these can be easier,
Hmm.
because then people would understand slightly better the where you're coming from, what are your constraints and restrictions, that it's not only your choice, that you have to do it. So build strong relationship. So that goes more towards the leadership, right? So it's not just about managing down. Leadership, it's about managing up and across.
Right,
Right.
right. To kind of understand their all levels and make sure you have your team on the level, not only the team that you are leading and they're guiding toward the result.
Exactly. So building strong relationships either within your team, throughout the organizations, uh, is important, like I said, and these kind of relationships or partnerships or collaboration, whatever you want to call it, can be really valuable uh, when we need to navigate these complex challenges. So build relationships.
Yeah. And what has been your biggest success with this relationship building? What do you think in your whole career has been a good example to share with our listeners?
In my lead management career, there were many occasions when I was leaving the organization or the team. What I think people genuinely came and appreciated my ways of working and how I managed the team and things like that. I used to give complete autonomy to people
Mm-hmm.
after the learnings, of course, the failures and learnings. Trust them a lot. If I need to if they need to learn something, I like we do pair programming with engineers. I used to do
Right.
these pair sessions. So let's say if I expect someone to write a report on something, if they write it, instead of just me reviewing it asynchronously, I jump on a call and do it live in front of them so that they know the next time what is expected and how to go about doing certain things. So teaching that or in that manner is also helpful. Yeah, so that's a difficult question to answer. Honestly, I need to think about it. Uh, but the feedback I received at the end of when I leave or when someone else leaves, when I talk to them before, is that they kind of enjoyed my style of management. But
Yeah. So basically, what I'm hearing you saying is establishing a certain style of management, right? They're establishing their way you approach, because we are all individuals. We can have a rule book, like, okay, do one-to-one, stick to a performance, or you tick, or go to I don't know, stand-up, Scrum, whatever you're using, tick. But the way you're doing this is very specific to us as individuals, and this is where AI in their section that we talked before could learn and basically adapt to the way you're approaching the problems.
definitely, and I think the specificity is the key here, because as a manager, if you want to kind of use the same management technique for everyone in your team, you're destined to fail. What I do or employ, I learned this as well, is that in my initial one-to-ones and meetings with every individual, I ask them how they like to be managed. I don't enforce, for example, we should have one-to-ones every week. If you're comfortable with every week, fine. If you want every 2 weeks, perfect. Whatever, how you would like to be managed. So understanding on an individual point of view how they like to be managed is going to help a lot. It has. And the other thing is also communicating with the team that how you like to be managed. So kind of managing up kind of situation. So I when I join a team, in first few weeks I send an email out saying this is my communication style, this is my leadership style, this is how I like to be managed, and if you want to come to me, this is the way of doing it. And it helps set the scene and the tone in the organization, and that seems to be.
Can you share this template? Who is there?
I can send it to you. I can prepare a template document out of it. Yes.
Because basically it's not company specific, but it's more about you, right? It's not about the company, it's about you. Therefore, it's interesting to kind of see and share it with a broader audience if you want.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, I can share the template in a Google Drive or something, and you can add a link.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you very much. So, Naveen, thank you for the conversation. We talked quite through different topics about your career, about your transition from their quality assurance to their basically IC to a head of QA and their leadership role, as a head of engineering in AI, you are now working on some AI projects which are fascinating. Hope they bring some new tools that would help us in all the key leadership skills that are required with their emotional intelligence, with going through their change, and with setting the strategic future. And I wish you all the luck in your current position, with these three different, sometimes controversial or topics that has to be on the plate of every leader. And if people want to reach out to you, where should they go? Where can they find you?
Again, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking about these topics. And if anyone would like to either continue this conversation or talk to me more about it, LinkedIn is the best place to reach out. I also have a website where I have a calendar connected, so you can set up some time to talk there as well. So I can share a link to both with you, and then
we'll put their links in the description so that people can connect to you and continue this conversation. Thank you for being there. So it's been a pleasure and a great conversation. Thank you, Naveen.
Likewise. Thank you so much.